meeting. Okay, thank you for that. We're going to call the meeting to order and ask for public comment. Public comment on non-agenda items even.
None received on either category.
Okay. We don't really have like a calling of the roll, but I will acknowledge, or I can acknowledge that everybody's here. I can see them, but Alex, do you need to do something, this being a Zoom meeting?
I think we're safe to say by acclamation that all trustees are present and accounted for.
Okay, great. Okay, so then we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. I think we can do it with one whack if there's a motion.
I'll move approval.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I can see by the lights that went on, that's all 3 members. So we'll say opposed, say nay. Hearing none. Okay, those pass unanimously, and we are at tentative budget.
Great.
The cymbals have crashed from the long drum roll that I've been listening to for a long time. So, dun dun dun, here it is.
I'm doing, did I do it right?
You're good.
All right. All right. First, I'd like to start off with thanking Hedva and her staff on this budget. It has been challenging and it has been big swings. We started off in January with a very healthy budget. Then we had COVID and the COVID recession, and with the economy crashing, revenues also crashing, and also revenues being uncertain because of the income tax being moved to the July 15th. So the governor took an approach at May revise of reducing the budget and doing some deferrals. And his approach was also assumed there was no federal relief, and then had relief to the budget if there was federal relief. The state legislature had a different philosophy, radically different philosophy. And they were in sync. The Assembly and Senate was in sync. Normally they're not, and they pass separate budgets and they're all around the same theme. And then they have the conference committee, or the Big Five as it's sometimes called, to come up with a compromise budget. But since the Assembly and the Senate were in sync, there was no conference committee. However, they did work with the governor to come up with a compromise. They actually passed a budget that was radically different than the May revise. They did not want any cuts to education or health services in the state budget, which put more cuts in other areas, but we'll concentrate on education. They also relied heavily on deferrals, and they wanted to assume there would be federal relief, and in an event there was not federal relief, they would then enact more deferrals. The governor and the legislature did come to a compromise, and I'm calling that the compromise budget. Now, I'd like to walk through some of those highlights and then talk about what the implications are for Pasadena City College District. It includes components of both the May revision and the budget adopted by the legislature. The significant issues was, I already stated, was how to plan for federal relief and preserving education funding. The governor won on how to plan for federal relief. It assumes a deferral of $1.5 billion of Prop 98 money. And if there's federal relief, that will be reduced to $791 million, will be rescinded. So it'll be roughly cut in half. It prevents immediate cuts to California community colleges. In fact, to all Prop 98 education, K-14. It provides $120 million a block grant to help address the impact of the pandemic. There is no COLA nor growth, which was one of the governor's points. It extends the hold harmless of the student center funding formula to 23-24. That is, I guess, good for the system. That means now the hold harmless will be in effect for 6 years, but Pasadena earns above the hold harmless, so it really does not benefit Pasadena. They did go forward with the governor's proposal to temporarily reduce pension costs, roughly 2% per year for the next 2 years for both PERS and STIRS. And that's 2% of the rate. It's important to remember it's the rate times our total salaries that comes up with the cost. It expresses the legislature's intent that the districts maintain all classified employees, specifically prohibits districts from laying off custodial, transportation, or child nutrition workers. This was a major issue with SUI employees and CSEA employees as they were lobbying. Also remember on the rest of the budget, many of the unions are taking a 10% pay reduction. So this got wrapped up into the larger budget issues. For us, it means that we cannot lay off any classified employees this next year for lack of work or lack of funds. Certainly, we can move forward if there are any discipline issues. We do not really have a transportation department. We do run shuttles, but we do them with hourly employees, so there's no protected employees, and we do not have child nutrition workers. It does provide $15 million for Dreamers Incentive Grant, which is shared with the Cal State and the UC system. We are supposed to get the bulk of it, but I have not seen the details. And on today's call, the Vice Chancellor for the state said that the education division or the instructional side of the house will determine how these funds will be allocated to the colleges. It fully funds Cal Grants, so that's good for our students. As you know, there's been an ongoing debate across the state on the efficacy of Calbright College, the Chancellor's online college. And at one point, in fact, the legislator's budget eliminated it. It defunded the college. Through the compromise, they came back with a 25% reduction in their ongoing funding, and they took away $40 million of the one-time money that they did not spend from last year. And good news for us, the Serapeum building is in the budget, and the construction phase is funded.
So can I ask a question
Sure.
on this page? So when it says, you said reduce the rate on pension costs 2%. So if the rate, hypothetical, I don't remember what it is, let's say it's 20%. Does that mean 20% down to 18% or 2% of the 20%, like 0.4%?
No, it is, the rate will reduce. The rate for PERS will go down next year from, was anticipated to be 22.67. It will go to 20.7. The next year out, 21-22 will go from 24.6 to 22.84. And STIRS will go from 18.4 to 16.15. And in the out year will be 17.9 to 16.02. And I can email those numbers to you, Mr.
Okay.
Mark.
Yeah, thank you. I'd appreciate that actually, but I get what you mean by 2%. Okay.
Yeah. So they take that number times our salaries. So a 2% reduction in rate is a sizable savings.
Yep.
And keep in mind, the way they funded this reduction is the state was buying down the liability every year. And instead of buying down the liability for the next couple of years, they decided to subsidize district rates.
Michael,
Yes?
just if this is just for us, it's fine, no need to change. But if you're going to present this to other groups, you might want to change that to rates reduced by 2 percentage points. Because
Okay.
John's right, it's not quite.
I appreciate the input because you get to see this again next week. So anything I can do to help make it clear to the general public, I appreciate it. Okay. All right. Any other questions on this page or suggestions?
And it funds Serafian building at the level previously committed, I assume.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Right.
Okay. It relies heavily on deferrals. And if we're looking at a $16 million cut or spending an extra $200,000 on interest to finance the cash, obviously financing the cash is better for next year for our college. But it essentially, they are fully funding the community college, even though under Prop 98, there's a 9% reduction to the system. So they're floating 9% through deferrals. It is a one-time budget savings for the state. It can cause significant cash flow issues for districts, putting stress on ending balances. And in fact, it is greater than our ending balance, what our deferral will be, and may require districts to issue tax revenue anticipation notes, also known as trans. Deferrals will roll forward until paid off. So this 1.5 billion of deferrals this year will occur next year, the year after, the year after. And for those that have been on the board for a while, remember when they did some pension deferrals and they kept on rolling. They also did some apportionment deferrals, and it wasn't until the big economic boom and Governor Brown held the line and says, no, we're paying off the debt. We're paying off the credit card, and started making double payments on the deferrals until he paid them off. Deferrals make future program reductions more likely and more profound. Keep in mind, this budget was built on 3 strong quarters of the economy and 1 very weak quarter. They're kind of betting that it's going to be a short-lived recession and there'll be a couple quarters of a downturn and then it'll come back. That is looking problematic, but we'll see. And these deferrals are significant. Below is the chart. They're not talking about like this year, we're not going to pay you for June and then we'll give it to you in July. They will earn money in February that they will not give us till the following November. That's 9 months. Then from March to October, that's 7 months. April to September is 5 months. May to August is 3 months. And June to July is 1 month. Now it's kind of strange on their order they're paying this back, but the logic that was shared with me today was that if there's federal relief, they'll start with the February through April and eliminate those deferrals. And then we'd be looking at some shorter deferrals of 5 months instead of the longer 9 months. If there is not federal relief or significant enough of federal relief for the state, we'd be looking at a 9-month deferral of almost $6 million to the college. And every month's roughly a $6 million deferral for it, for a total of $30 million.
So that was my question. And so I get to see graphically the hit to the system. it seems like it would be more real to show one more column that shows the impact to us.
And I will be able to do that after the meeting I had today.
Yeah,
It's
Because-
going to be done on a percentage of the TCR. We didn't know if it would be strictly FTS, TCR, or they're now saying it will be on the TCR. So we'll be able to look, and the state also hasn't issued the advanced apportionment report yet, so we could determine it. But I can
So-
give it the estimates for at the board meeting, and then we'll closer to August, September, when we get the advanced apportionment, we could show what the impact on the cash flow will be.
yeah. So obviously, I mean, just thinking ahead, our total beginning ending balance is someplace hovering around $30 million.
Correct. It's in the 20s, actually, high 20s.
Yeah, and we just deferred
30.
more than we have there, of course. So that kind of highlights the magnitude of the issue, not to mention that you need something for working capital. So, okay.
Correct. So there are two large pools looking at trans. One is with the League for community colleges, and the other's with LA County. And we will stay close to both of those pools. And right now I'm leaning more towards the League with other community colleges. And we will look to see what sort of interest rates they can get and how much the cash would cost us. But essentially what they do, we do our cash flow. When we have our cash flow problem, we get the funds, and then we can draw down on those funds. And then as it starts to pay back the deferrals, those payback of deferrals pays off the trans. So we end up financing the state's cash flow issue. Okay. Any other questions?
So when you look at the budget that you're going to get to here in a minute, it's about a break even, not quite, but about a break even. But that's really totally misleading, because on a cash basis, we're down 30 million.
Right. Our P&L looks good. Our general ledger's rotten. We have no cash.
So
We're
Mike,
carrying a significant receivable.
Mike, do you want to explain what the strategy is behind, rather than the state showing us as a cut, they're showing us as fully funding relative to Prop 98? It might be helpful because, one could take a step back and think, well, they should have just cut our budgets.
Correct. And the governor actually was there. Prop 98 is 9% less than what they're funding the community colleges. So the state wants to hold Prop 98 at the minimum funding. If they increase it, it then increases every year forever, according to the formula. So what they're doing is they're allowing us to say we have the money in one fiscal year, but the state saying it's actually budgetarily in that fiscal year for them. And this lowers the Prop 98 guarantee for them. Governor Newsom wanted to do a combination of deferrals and cuts, but that would have reduced program services to our community at a time when they're most needed. So this is the compromise they came out with. It is risky in that if the economy does not recover sufficiently, they will have to make reductions, plus we'll have these huge deferrals. So it makes some sense, but for the short term, but long term, it can be a major issue for the state, which will become a major issue for us.
Dr. Bush, so basically, I followed this. So in case the federal provide aid, this scenario will improve, is that correct?
Correct. It'll be about half.
Okay.
And that's the federal government providing the aid in which they think it will occur.
Okay.
Okay. So when we look at our budget, it's essentially the same as last year. The major difference in our budget is for our international students. We normally do about $10 million for our international students in fees, and in consulting with our student services colleagues, we reduced that by $3 million. That was before the federal government made their announcement that international students, if they're taking classes online, need to return to their home country. So it's possible we'll take another $7 million hit on this. However, both Harvard and MIT sued the federal government today over this. I don't know the specifics other than the Wall Street flash I got that they filed the lawsuit. But we will see what will happen. There are issues for our international students in how will they return home during a pandemic, and there's a number of issues this brings up. I understand that the state chancellor's office will be issuing a statement by Friday on what they are going to do and the advocacy that they will do for our students. So we'll have to see, but the current budget has a $3 million reduction, and that would be in non-resident tuition.
And possibly another 7.
Possibly we could get up to another 7. That could be all gone. The 6.7 would be out. So, and the salaries and the salaries and benefits are roughly the same. It's 88.3% of our budget, which is a little higher than usual, but we adjusted supply accounts accordingly, and operating expenses, and our capital outlay, and as well as our transfers. It maintains our board adopted 18% reserve, and although a deficit spends slightly at $425,000, we still have our 18%. Okay. And then this is a summary of all the funds where we look at the income and expenditures for all the funds as it breaks down, as well as the transfers. You can see that we're going to transfer 2.2 million out of the general fund. And then we have our restricted fund. That's our contributions, child development, capital outlay fund, workers' compensation. Then we're going to contribute to our OPEB self-insurance fund, which is different than our trust, our irrevocable trust at the bottom of the page.
So what is the transfer of 2 million to 6? Where is that going and for what purpose?
It's going to these various funds. You'll see that it nets out at 0. So we got 350 to the restricted fund for our contributions, 36,000 child development fund, 600,000 to the capital outlay fund, 500 will go to the property and liability fund, 500 will go to the OPEB self-insurance fund, and 220 to trust and agency, which is our fees for the ASG.
Was that in the tentative budget that we received, that $2 million transfer?
Yes, it is.
What's it listed under?
I'll have to go look, but it's part of the balance. And Hedva, if you could
I
unmute
think he
yourself.
means, Tammy, it's in the numbers, but that sheet showing it to you in that simple format, it was not until he just sent us the PowerPoint,
Okay,
but it's baked into the numbers.
in that 16-page budget.
Yes,
On page 11, that 2,206,480, you'll see it under a caption called Other Outgo.
Okay.
what page is it? 11?
Page 11.
Okay. And
What number? What accounting number is it? Account number?
7310.
7310.
Oh, that's not in mine.
okay. So it'd be this line right there. The 2,206,000 right there, their tentative budget.
And I'm sorry, that's being transferred from where?
From the unrestricted general fund.
Thank you.
Okay, let me stop sharing this and go back. Okay, then any other questions on the summary sheet? Okay. We received a surprise on our P2. We received our P2 document on June 27th, and the P2 had an 8.16% deficit, which we had a 3%, and then they said that was going away. And then all of a sudden, an 8.16 showed up for over $12 million deficit. We are told it's because the Educational Protection Act, that's the Prop 30, Prop 55, which taxes the highest wage earners, which is an income tax. So they really don't know what the money is. So they put this in. It is kind of contrary from the law because the Educational Protection Act has continuing appropriation, i.e. if the property taxes come in too low, the state general fund has to backfill. And K-12 education has that on the revenue limit. We don't have it on our student center funding formula if property taxes come, but this particular one does. Dr. Anajanis contacted the Department of Finance, Chris Ferguson, and had discussions with her colleagues. And to mine and Hedva's relief, we found the Department of Finance says the deficit is a mistake. And they have asked the Chancellor's office to reissue P2. We should get it in July or August. In our conversations today, with the statewide CBOs and the Chancellor's office, the R1 or our annual at the end is anticipated to have a 0.5 to 1% deficit, which is certainly within the realm of what we've seen in the past.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's a little up, sometimes a little down. I'm not viewing this as a financial issue for the district as other deficits have been, but it's certainly an audit issue. And I had conversations with our auditors. We are wondering when we go to close our books, what document we're going to use to justify a receivable. Normally you get your P2 and it'll say this is how much you get for apportionment. And if you receive more money, you book a payable. If you receive less money, you book a receivable, and then it settles up. We don't have that magic document right now, and we're somewhat concerned across the state on how we're going to close our books and how we're going to document this, both auditors and the chancellor's office is having conversations with the controller's office to see what can be accepted in our audit reports. And we don't have an answer right now, but we're continuing to track it. But we have been told by both the chancellor's office and the Department of Finance that the P2 that they issued is incorrect. So, any questions regarding this? Because this may come back up under the audit when the committee looks at the audit. Okay. With that, that concludes my report. Is there any other suggestions that the board has for improving for the larger board meeting next week?
I don't hear any.
I do.
I have a hand up.
Oh, well, good. Oh, okay.
I know it'd be a lot of work, but I am worried that the federal government will not provide any more funding.
Correct.
And this is assuming that they do. Is that correct? Or assuming the state's assumption is that they will?
Well, the governor won that debate and asked for a budget that assumes they don't. So we're going to have a $30 million deferral unless the federal government gives relief. And then that will go down to just under a $15 million deferral.
Okay, so this is the worst.
Worst case scenario.
Okay, it can only get better.
Well,
Hopefully.
the 21-22 budget could get worse, but the 2021 can only get better. But because of the large deferrals and no reductions, it'll put almost certainly, if they come up short, everything will be on a reduction after that. So when we looking at the long game, if the economy does not recover, and I know there was a lot of economic growth and people going back to work, but now we've had another surge in COVID cases in the state, and they've reduced the hospitality field significantly, again, in what will be that impact. And also office buildings are starting to be impacted. So hopefully we don't close more indoor businesses because A, that would mean we're having a larger surge and hospital beds are short, but B, because of the economy. If the economy doesn't recover, 21, 22 is going to be a very rough year. So sorry to be a downer, but I didn't want to say it could only get better. Eventually, everything will be better when we get a vaccine. But from a budget standpoint, this is it's betting a lot that the economy is going to recover before 21, 22. And that's going to be tough.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I just had the tiniest question because I love books.
All right.
And in the capital outlay, account number 6310, library books,
Mm-hmm.
those $0, really? We're not going to buy any books?
Not out of the general fund. We have our restricted lottery that we can buy books out of. And we're working a lot on digital resources right now and providing those and closing the digital gap. So
There's a statewide contract that we participate in that provides a lot of digital resources that can be accessed by students anywhere, anytime, which is really important because it's required by our accreditation that we have access to library services for students regardless of modality. So even if we weren't, I mean, in some ways, it's one reason that our students have robust library services now because we already provided it digitally. And I think that the sad thing is that you're going to see a decline in the purchase of books by our library, because if you look at the usage of books in the stacks, it has gone down. And, you know, it's just a different world. I did my dissertation with a card catalog, so I feel you, I hear you, because I'm all about the card catalog, but that's not where we're headed these days. But the state didn't give us any money for instructional materials or equipment. So all of our purchases for those kinds of instructional materials have to come out of our lottery funds.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments about the tentative budget?
Yeah, my hand's up.
How do I see hands up? I'm looking on everybody's picture.
Participants.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dr. Bush, I was just wondering, where is the CARES money documented in the budget?
It's under the categorical and for the federal money. And Hedvig, can you comment on that?
Absolutely. If you look on page 13 on the tentative budget where it says Fund 03 Restricted General Fund, you will see that we have $49 million, and incorporated in that is the CARES budget.
Okay, thanks.
Was there a specific question on the CARES?
No,
Okay, all right.
Okay, Tammy?
Okay, yeah. I have a question on, so I'm looking at the PDF handout that we were sent, and just stylistically from PDF pages like 13, let me see, 13 to 16, where there are a variety of funds, say on page 14, restricted general fund, any of them, why, when there's an ending balance, does it not carry forward to the next year's beginning balance? I've never seen that. Usually you have an ending balance and that becomes your beginning balance.
Yes, this is comparing an adopted budget to another tentative budget. It's not comparing our year end or our board approved budget. So we're anticipating, for example, in Fund 43, Scheduled Maintenance Fund, that it will end with a balance of 1.1 million, which will be carried forward. And at year-end close, you will see where that's exact. This is where we were at the same point in time last year.
So last year we thought we would end with 3.6 million for that
Yes.
fund, and we're off by over like 2.5 million.
We did projects and spent money on repairing the school.
And the state isn't giving us more money.
Correct.
So that's why we did projects which spent down the money. And if you look at the budget that has just come through, there's nothing for scheduled maintenance, which is a big problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when that budget was adopted a year ago, we thought we would still have 3.6 million, and that particular, we're just looking at Fund 43, just for an example.
Right.
We thought we would have that, but
Yeah.
we did more maintenance than we anticipated.
And probably received less revenue than anticipated.
And just so you know, one reason, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, one reason we were able to do a little more maintenance is because nobody was on our campus after March 18th, which meant that we could replace floors. It meant we could do painting. It meant we could do projects that we could not do it when classes are in session. So we basically took advantage of the classes not having people in them.
That's great.
Yeah. That's the only upside to this.
Like the
You know, I realize, just following on Tammy's thought though, and I realize this is just a tentative budget and this is scheduled maintenance fund. The fact that, so we had 1.1 million a year ago. We didn't receive as much as we thought. We spent more than we thought. It's just a little bit over coincident that to the dollar, we're starting right where we left off again. I think that's the point she was trying to make. It's
Right.
just a little, you know, I understand if that number was 750,000 or 1,500,000. It just looks fishy when you're starting to the dollar exactly where you started this a year ago, despite whatever happened this year. So I get why it's not 3.6.
Correct.
I'm just making a point.
Right. And I don't have an answer to that, but
Yeah.
I will look at it tomorrow.
I mean, you know, you're working in budgets and broad numbers and you're focused on the general fund and, you know, I get it. So no big deal. But I'm just pointing out kind of why the question comes up.
I appreciate that. We'll look at that.
It's actually kind of a good catch on her part, I think.
It is. I appreciate it.
Okay. I don't.
Other questions and hands that I can't see and hands that I do see? Anyone? I'm looking all over for hands. I'm looking at pictures. I'm looking down the list of participants. Oh, there's a hand. Go ahead, Tammy.
Okay, last question.
Oh, you can have as many as you want.
Okay, thank you. So I'm looking at the budget and I see, you know, allocations for salaries and benefits and all that. And I realize that a budget is really a statement of values, that you put your money into what you think is important. And so this is one way to do a budget, but we can't really see if the budget matches our policies and our goals and our mission, because we can't see what programs are being funded to support our students or to close the equity gap.
Correct. Other government agencies, and including our K-12 colleagues, do what we would call an activity report. What is the activity the money's going towards? What are we using it for, not what we're spending it on? So with this, the way the State Chancellor's Office does a budget is geared towards what we're spending the money on rather than the things we're doing with it. So we could look at resorting the budget for showing how much we spend in student support, how much we spend on instructional support. But the accounting system from the state accounting manual is limited, where in the K-12, you could look at Title I funds. How much did you spend on second language learners? You can look at those things because of the account code structure. It's called SACS that enables you to do it. Also with municipal governments and other states are very big. They have the activity. And in our audit statement, we talk a lot more about the activity of things that and how we spend our money than what we spent the money on.
So is there a time where we can see how the dollars are directed? Is that ever done for PCC?
I don't
Well,
believe it. I don't believe it has been done in a report, but I can take a look at that. And then it depends on what level we want to drill down to as far as the activity, because
so I think Yeah, and I think the question is the level of detail that you are actually asking about, because we can give it to you in broad brush strokes, but I'm going to be pretty clear that to go down further than to say, here's how we support this area, this is how we support this area. If you want to go to the line item, then that's wandering into operations, because then it's like, I totally support your overarching idea that your budget basically is your philosophy, but we have to also guard against a review of, well, why did you spend this amount of dollars here instead of here? And I just want to be clear that we can't go down that rabbit hole. Does
Yes,
that make sense?
it does, because I've been studying about how to be a good trustee and I get it, but it's always a balance, isn't it?
And it's totally a balance. And so there are probably some ways, like when we bring the full budget to you, there's probably a way to break it down, like have the financial piece that Mike will go through and Hedva will go through and show you how it all balances out. And then we could do some overarching, if we had to break it down, we have, this is how we do things in student services, and this is how we do things in business, and this is how we do things in instruction and in non-credit. And we could break it down that way. And that way you might get a sense of how it all kind of comes together into the big numbers.
I would like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. We can differentiate between how we spend our general funds versus how we utilize like equity funds and other categoricals. We totally can do that. I just want to keep it at the right level.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay.
We'll do that.
So,
Trustee Martin, Trustee Brown are familiar with a report called the 311, which does break it down into activities and broad strokes of how much we spend on instruction, how much we spend on instructional support, how much do we spend on plant maintenance, things like that.
Yeah.
So you're not going to want to hear this, but back before we had Banner, when we were on Santa Rosa Gold or whatever it was, and the name of the computer. Yeah, and I'm trying to think of the name of the computer, Bertha or something. There were two computers and they had names. I can't think of the name of the computer. Anyway, we used to get.
It was George.
Okay, whatever it was. George isn't ringing a bell, but whatever the name of the computer was. We used to get a report and it was at least 3 or 4 inches thick. And it literally had every department, every cost center. How long have you been with us, Chedva? Do you remember any of this? You used to have every department, every cost center, and had the name of every employee in that cost center, the percentage they were assigned, and vacant and all that. And it was this big, humongous, I don't think I saved any of them, thing that was obviously not geared for trustee level.
Right.
But we always got one. So anyway, so blast to the past on that one. But there was one thing, we also got a summary that looks something like what you gave us here that everybody really looked at. The other thing that was helpful in the summary that came with it was not just a total on the dollars, but a total on FTE staffing. So there was some kind of, total number of FTE, instructional and managerial
I seem
and
to remember
support.
seeing a copy of that. There was a standard report you used to get once a year, I think, that had the breakdown.
Yeah,
of
they had some FTE. It usually came along with the budget.
Yeah, we can go back to that because I remember reviewing that when I was in the application process.
Yeah.
So I can understand what your breakdown was.
And sometimes following the body count is another way to prioritize or see what's going on. by observing kind of the body count in different sections, because obviously that's where the real work's being done, is in the bodies. So,
Right. Trustee Martin, I
Yeah.
believe we provided that report with the adopted budget.
okay, so that's good.
We could, if you would like it with tentative, we could probably include it.
Yeah, it was always a helpful report just to see the comparison, because you would see the changes from year to year
Correct.
in FTE positions and things. I think it was built on positions, not, so vacants counted.
Right.
Yeah. So that might be helpful. Yeah, but I'm not advocating that we get the big brick like we did with Santa Rosa Gold or whatever. So
Yeah.
All right.
Other questions and comments? You're doing good, people. Okay, we ready for the next topic, which is the PARS investment update, and I appreciated getting that. Anything you want to say about it, Mike? I mean, it speaks for itself quite a bit.
It does. I was looking for the document here. Because I thought I had it open.
I'm also just shocked how much we've recovered.
Yes, yes.
We've recovered more, a higher percentage than I think the market has recovered, but it's
So
obviously
is my
diversified.
529.
I'm sorry, I missed
I
it.
said, so is my daughter's 529.
Oh, okay.
Here's the report. You could see when the market crashed, we did take a big hit, about 1.2 million, but it did start coming back pretty strong. And since the inception, we're at 5.9% return, which is
And
good.
that's beats the county, doesn't it?
It does. It's not hard to beat the county right now,
Yeah.
but I like the
Do we
county.
manage our own money?
Pardon?
Do we manage our own money? Is that ours or
Well, it's sort of ours.
for pensions? But
It's an irrevocable trust that will eventually pay for either our pension or our post-retirement health benefits.
so we're not in a consortium with all community colleges to invest money for the pensions?
No.
That's separate from PERS and STIRS. This
Yeah.
is not PERS and STIRS.
No, this is a number of years ago, to comply with the government accounting standards, the Gatsby rules, we had to start putting on our financial statements the unfunded liability. And we have an actuarial report that's done that says, this is your unfunded liability for your retiree health benefits. We've made promises in our collective bargaining agreements to continue health benefits after separation from the district. And that costs the district money. And there's a liability that is accumulating not only for the retirees, but for active employees that are still eligible for that benefit. Not everyone is, but there's a finite number of employees that are. So we calculate that liability. And a number of years ago, the board decided to take some available funds and then put them in an irrevocable trust and have it start growing. And at times, perhaps not this year, but in good years, add to it. And eventually it will grow to a point it will cover that liability. And it would be coming out of our liability fund. So
could you remind me how much did we transfer to that account? Was it 10 million? I'm trying to remember. Was it 10, John?
Yes, well, that's what it says up here.
Well,
This starts in January of 19. So there were two different ones, right? One's OPEB and the other one's for PERS and STIRS.
Yeah.
And I think we were negotiating, what was it that we expected to see in the dividends? Are we pretty much close to what we anticipate, or are we a little more, or what?
Well, I don't remember exactly targeting a certain number, but we certainly, our other alternative was to just keep it at the county and get less than 1%. So this
I think we were
organization, I'm sorry.
I think we were kind of talking at least 5%, if I'm not mistaken.
I know that the PARS organizations has different portfolios depending on your level of risk tolerance. And our CFO at the time decided to go with one of the more conservative, lower risk tolerance portfolios. So it's nice to see this level of return in that conservative of a portfolio. So it's more reflective, I think, of a lot of increase in bonds that's happened recently. But I think we started with about 10 in one and 4 in the other, or something like that. Is that about right, Mike? Judd is shaking her head, yes?
Yes.
I believe so, but Hedva would
Yeah,
more accurately. I wasn't here when this was set up.
right.
Trustee Martin is correct, was 10 million in the first one and 4 million in the other one.
Oh, okay.
And just quickly, the OPEB is that when employees that have worked for the district for 14 years and have meet a couple other criteria
Retire.
they're given a small stipend every year, something like $1,440, something like that, for the rest of their life, which was theoretically supposed to help them, in addition to Medicare, helping them cover a Medicare supplement.
Right.
And that's OPEB. That bill is OPEB. So when we put the 10 million in there, this money has to be used to help the district support that funding or that liability of that funding. And then I think the other one, PERS, is our PERS and STIRS. I think is $1,440 a year, I think. Is that what it is? Something like that?
Yes.
You know, you think that's not very much money a year, but multiply that times a lot of retirees in a lot of years, and it adds up, I guess.
It does.
And it defrays Part B of Medicare.
Yeah, that's what we were hoping when we established that for them.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on our investment, on the PARS investments? All righty, so then we're to meeting schedule. And you want to do this all again
Yeah.
Always.
Yes.
on October 14th? Is that the next one?
Believe
That will
so.
be in advance of the final budget, right, Mike?
Correct. Which we anticipate being the October meeting.
Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Anybody making plans? I've got plans. I moved from my bedroom to my living room. I got to schedule it. For vacation, I might make it to the kitchen.
Well,
Okay.
I'm teaching a graduate class at CSUN in the fall, Community College Finance and Enrollment Management. So my plan is to have my students in the audience for this meeting next time.
Oh, wow. To think the power of my living room. Okay. So we're good on that meeting schedule. Does anyone have any proposed future agenda items? Okay, I'm gotta be careful. I gotta look for hands over here, and I gotta look for hands here. And sometimes it's a little easier in person. Okay, I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. So I think we're down to adjournment. So hopefully this helped everybody. It sure helped me understand better what's going on. I appreciate the good questions by the other trustees and others on the call. And I think we're officially adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bush. Thank you, Hedva. Awesome sauce.
Good night.
Good night.